Sorry I missed the absolute beginning of this. I have just changed the Z probe level. I do have a new feeder which I will be talking about later on in this video. That is up there a bit, but this is a long print, a 5-hour print I think. Yeah, maybe not 5 hours anyway, slightly short of 5 hours. So just let you watch this beginning because it gets into its start, then I'll be doing a time lapse. I'm just going to leave that, that's a little bit, that might be just like the ooze coming out the nozzle as it starts. it looks quite good for start. Oh, by the way, this is a 0 infill. I do a 0 infill on some of my prints to save time, save plastic printing, just to check that the sizes and such like are okay before I might do a higher level of infill. This is actually part of the feeding mechanism, part of a feeding mechanism that I've been working on. A modified file that I got Thingiverse, I think, and just some tweaking to it. Trying to put a quick release system on it. It doesn't come with a quick release for the filament. And a slight other change that you'll see in this when it gets near the end. An awful lot of problems using Tinkercad, changing the files for this. Seem to be going slow, sluggish, seem to be struggling, sometimes crashing in Firefox and in Internet Explorer, and sometimes coming back with error messages about grouping certain parts, because this is in a way made up of certain different parts, this model. To a certain extent I've had to like split the parts up and then put them back together in slightly different. Anyway, I don't want to start waffling on about that, just a lot of problems with Tinkercad, being slow and not doing it. I mean, I left this on all night on Tinkercad just to get almost working, and then it seemed to work the next day, okay, well reasonably. One thing about having this probe in front of the nozzle is it does hide the nozzle. As I say, this is a 4-hour 56-minute print, and that's even when it's like hollow, just asking for the outside shells basically, no infill. I think it could be a 24-hour print actually if you ask for 100% infill. Usually 100% is not needed. I'll just tell you the bed temperature. I do set up, this is PLA 1.75, although it does measure more than 1.7, this PLA. The bed temperature is set to 30, blue painter's tape obviously. I usually set the bed temperature to 30, that's just probably a little bit above ambient, so that will stabilise the temperature, because obviously ambient temperatures can fluctuate somewhat. The nozzle is set to 190. Most of the other defaults, as the defaults are, I think, feed rates 100%, etc, etc. They're the main settings. E3D version 6 Hotend there, 0.4 nozzle on it, Bowden system, and I do have a new feeding mechanism. If you see my other feeding mechanism, it was a nightmare. I put this about centre of the print bed. So just the row of lights there, I'll show you that just now. So it's a bit to the right of centre, that shortens the Bowden, like the length of the Bowden shoe, because it was originally passing to the right, left hand side of this frame, the original feeding mechanism. I didn't put it in the centre because I probably will plan maybe sometime in the future to put another one of these down here, so then it's like dual nozzles. That might be awkward, but it's going to take quite a bit to do that, if I do that, because there's not much space actually on this plate where the nozzle goes in. So as you see, it's quite a smallish area, this plate. There's a Bowden tube, E3D version 6. This is my hacked together expansion slots of a computer sort of probe thing, just a micro switch on there that I can swing around. It is on a spring thing, so when it's doing the auto leveling, which I would highly recommend, you set up auto leveling on your bed, auto tramming should call it. Okay, so there's that, so that's why I haven't put totally in the centre on this like framework here up the top of my printer. I'll get you a different angle of that feeding mechanism. So here is a feeding mechanism. I'll put details of this on this video and down below in the description. I got somebody on eBay to print this out for me, did a great job. I've tip extra narrow on it just so I know that's like the feeding direction. Oh, remember that if you're used to using a geared feeding mechanism, which I was, the gears almost turn the feed in a different direction, whereas this turns the feed in the same direction, so you have to in a way reverse the feeding direction. Obviously you want to recalibrate your feed. Now at the moment I don't particularly like the way the spool is. This is a plastic, it's feeding in a bit of an angle going up there. I'll try and get you some other better angles of this just now. And the retractions certainly do work on this, where on my other feeding mechanism they didn't seem to work. They certainly do work on this, because I felt the actual plastic filament there going in, coming backwards when it was retracting. Obviously sometimes it can move slow and sometimes it can move fast. Belt drive, as you can see, Bowden. So it is at a bit of an angle, yes, that's because the framework there on this corner, like end corner piece, top corner piece here, is at an angle. Well, as you see, it is at a bit of an angle. It's not exactly vertical, but that's okay because it puts this like Bowden tube going over there and down below at a bit of an angle instead of going straight up. I think that puts a bit of a less strain on the Bowden tube. Belt drive, as you see, and this does have springs there on the left to put a bit of pressure onto the filament, whereas my other one did not. This also has a ball base on this sort of thing that presses against the filament, which my other filament feeder did not. And this hasn't got any sort of back play, which my other feeder certainly did have. Obviously it's got a gear reduction going through this belt. I think it's about 3/4 to 1, something like that. I will put the details about this filament feeding mechanism on this video here. As I say, I put a bit of white Tipex with a sort of arrow shape on to remind me which direction it should be turning when it's feeding, and also so I can look at it quite quick and see that it is actually turning. Sometimes it can be hard to know if filament is getting fed in to your printer, because sometimes it, like now at the moment, it's moving quite slow. I've known it need to move even slower than this sometimes. And at those stages it can be quite difficult to know if it's turning or if the filament is actually feeding. I'll try and give you another angle look at this belt drive filament feeder in a few more seconds. Let's watch that come round maybe to the top there. So as you see, it's got a couple of bolts there with springs on, and those put the filament under pressure. Obviously, because I've got some springs on, they've got a little bit of leeway there. Those go into a ball vase, where my other filament feeder almost just had a bit of plastic pushing against the filament onto the hub bolt. Right, let's move to a different location. So there's a Bowden tube coming over here. I do have heat sink sort of things cemented on with heat cement on my steppers. I think those do help keep them, well, a few degrees off them. I wouldn't say they're brilliant, but a little bit of help, I think. There's a good look at the belt. Bowden tube coming up towards us, and the stepper. And you can see the heat sink on the stepper there, and the hub bolt sort of coming through this side. So it's got these two sort of, well, it's two of these on springs. They're pressed on this plate with a ball bearing, race bearing, skateboard bearing in there, pressing on the filament. That's a hub bolt coming through. Bowden tube coming up here, going down to the print head. Stepper, heat sink. Oh, that's just basically obviously going down to the hot end down here, and that has been quite a big improvement. Well, I would class it as a major improvement to this printer. Well, for me it has. I have a lot less problems with printing now. Still probably some tweaking to do, especially the Z-bed height, sort of probe height there when it's doing the first layers. I think that needs a bit of tweaking still, but it's coming out reasonably okay. I have to watch how well this sticks on here. It might stick too much. That's one of my bigger lights down there on the right hand side. I'm going to take you into the print sort of nozzle area just now, and then I'll be putting it on time lapse. Well, looking at the outline of this, it seems to be printing okay. move the camera down a bit. I'll let you watch this, make you suffer a bit, yeah, watching this for a few more seconds, and then I'll be putting it on time lapse just now. Well, I'm not sure what happened there. It turned me back on the camera and it went off. Well, actually the plug came out, but I have it on, like, to keep it on charge. But the printer's coming along alright. Obviously we're on normal speed in the video here, so it's building up okay. Let you watch this a few seconds. So as I say, this is basically no infill at all. It's just the outer shells that's doing here. It probably is a little bit of stringing, but I think the stringing now is a lot better now I've got my new feeder. Some people call it an extruder. So it's printing quite well here. It's about 3 hours into this print, so it's a 4-hour 56-minute print. So it's about another, well, not far off, a couple of hours yet, I think. I got my maths right. So anyway, you'll probably see just the outer layers mainly there. Doing this saves time and plastic. This would be probably a 24-hour print if it was on 100%, that is. Not that many prints really need 100%, that's my understanding. So this is like just to see if I've got the sizes right. And see if all the parts sort of fit together, because there's a number of parts to this. Well, not a lot, just about four parts, I think. 4 or 5, if you, well, you could say 6 if you include both cog wheels, because this is a belt drive. Same as what I've got now, but I've redesigned it to try and put a bit quicker release on the filament feeding section, and also on the side here is something will appear. I'm not going to tell you what it is. If you see my other pinch you might know. Okay, I'll go back onto the speed setting now, so like time lapse just now. Right back to normal speed now. So the hot end there is set at 190, the heated bed is 30 degrees. Blue painter's tape, PLA 1.75, although it measures more near 1.7. E3D version 6 hot end with a 0.4 nozzle on it. And as I say, why I asked the bed to come to 30 degrees is just a bit above probably ambient temperature when it's warm, so that might help stabilise a known temperature rather than being an ambient temperature might be quite cold and you don't know what temperature that is really, as it might be quite sunny day and it might be quite warm and you might get different bed temperature from that. So now you can really see the dragon coming out on the side there. And starting to sort of finish off the layering. As I say, this is a hollow model, no infill. And having no infill saves an awful lot of time. This is leaving up a 5-hour print, just slightly short of 5 hours. It could be up to 24 hours if I did 100% infill apparently, according by Cura, and I have no reason to doubt Cura when it says that. So just trying to show you the side there a bit. Slightly different angle. And you can see that the Z is adjusting there to raise the nozzle and lower the nozzle to allow for any offset in the bed being not level. So as you can see, printing onto blue painter's tape. No treatment to this blue painter's tape at all, not being sanded or not even cleaned off with isopropyl alcohol, which is probably recommended, but I haven't bothered. It'll be interesting to see how easy it is for this model to come off the bed. I think it will come off reasonably easily. I have asked for the Z probe to be raised. So each model I print I've been asking for the bed, well, the nozzle to be raised in comparison with the bed plate, what we know as Z probe level, I think that's known as. So that means that the plastic isn't squashed so much onto the blue painter's tape, and I'm hoping that will help make it a bit easier to come off the bed, yet still being adhered to the bed. It's getting the right balance when you're doing things like this, but because of the problems I've had with the feeder and problems altogether with this printer, it's been quite a long journey to even get to this stage. I just want to show you the feeder again, just now, just before it sort of finishes. So it's a belt drive. I will put the details on this video here. Bowden feed, as you can see. Those 4 slots on the left are where that, well, the old feeding mechanism I had used to be. There's filament going up there to the feeder. Not really the best way for the filament to feed in, I don't think, but it seems to work pretty well. one of my lights there on the right hand side. And there's sort of the spool down here. I have a sheet of cardboard here because, as you can see, there's a door there, so when the door's opened I'm trying to keep out any draft that comes in. So I should be finishing off in a few more minutes. I have cut out a piece of white paper, well, it's a self-adhesive label, address label, cut out into the shape of an arrow on this wheel, just so I know that it is actually turning. Sometimes it's hard to tell when it's feeding quite slow. It can feed quite slow, surprising how slow it does feed the plastic over this Bowden tube into the hot end and make the model with it. Now you can see the reverse there. So sometimes I'll clip a clip-on to the filament as it's going in like this, because otherwise it can be very difficult to tell that the plastic, the filament, is actually feeding into the unit. Even though the wheel is turning there, it does not necessarily mean that the filament is actually feeding in. Although I've had no problems since getting this feeding mechanism here. So by putting a clip on like this, we can see what position it's in, and then look again in a few moments to see if it's feeded or not. Now you might have seen it go like in reverse there for the retraction, and if you're lucky you might have seen the sort of clip also go in reverse. And actually it's finishing off now. Let me take this clip off here before I forget. Although generally speaking that clip will just push off or push out the way. It's not on there really all that strong. So as I say, I ask it to play a bit of music for me to know that's finished, and I like to leave it a few more moments on the bed for the bed to cool down, although the bed is basically only on 30 degrees anyway. So it's looking quite good, well, to me, for a basic hollow filled model. Hopefully there's quite a good look at the dragon on the side. Now, let's see how easy it is to get off the bed. So I've got this paint scraper which I have sharpened the edge up and rounded the corners on, just using a hand file. See, that's getting under there quite easily, and I'm going to wiggle it a bit. And lifting it, and as you can see, that's come off there quite easily, but it's been adhered to the bed quite well. So let me show you the bottom first. So that's the side that was on the blue painter's tape. Quite honest, I do quite like the texture. I think it hasn't done too good a job in there, but remember this is a hollow fill, so no fan to sort of cool as it's going across from one part to another to stop it sagging or anything like that. The only real fan is the one that's actually on the hot end. These are extremely lightweight when given a zero infill like this one. You might be able to get an idea of how lightweight it is by the sound of that. Quite strong. I mean, I wouldn't want to put this under any sort of major force. This is ideal for doing like prototypes to see if other parts will actually fit on before you start printing anything like major with a bigger infill. That would take up an awful lot of plastic. So some gaps here in that corner as it's come across there. A few strings, nothing major, I don't think. Again, you can probably hear how hollow it is. So those holes have come out pretty good. And these like slot holes here are quite good, a bit of stringing across them. We'll want a bit of finishing. Obviously this is the main one that might need finishing, this edge here. It's drilling out and filing. So basically there's a ball bearing race goes in that side, one in this side, hub bolt through there. There's another plate that comes over here, which I'm hoping will act as a quick release. That's what I've been doing with this, turning it into a quick release system, or trying to, or easier to release. I don't know about being quick. So it's come out very well, as you see there. No what I would term as major problems. Obviously if I put some more like shells on it, I think you increase the number of shells. This is only the default settings in Cura. Then each layer of this hollow model would be thicker, and it would probably get more support and stop things like these gaps occurring that have occurred there, and certainly on this side of this, where this ball base will go, and the hub bolt through there. So that's like the hole for the feeding mechanism to come out. The Bowden to come out, feed goes in there. Another ball base in there that on this plate that will clamp against that. There's nothing much more I can say about it really, I don't think. So I'm just going to leave it there. Well, let's see how easy it is to get this sort of skirt off this bed. Sometimes you have to be careful using your fingernails, because you can get plastic under your fingernail, and that's coming off like a knife through hot butter. Just about there, all in one piece. That's come off very nicely. I think that's coming off. Really I want something like a plastic. Oops, I'm scratching that with my nail, damaging the blue painter stick, but that's come off quite easily. Show you the bed. So there has been other prints on this bed. That's for the lever of this quick release mechanism. This is all around there is what I've just been printing. But pretty good. That's come out fine. So that was 5 hours 56 minutes. That is the time allotted by Cura, and going by my display that is spot on. 5 hours 56 56 minutes with a 0% infill. There's quite a gap there as well, just noticed. I'll say some more shells or like layers in a way for the outside would sort that out, and possibly a fan to cool it as it's moving about would help stop that. But this is just like prototyping